Hi, everybody. We are live on Call to Activism today. Just saying hi. So much to talk about in the news. This is something new we're doing every Monday. We're going to be going live. So it's really cool to see you here. Thank you for watching. Really appreciate it. I'm Joe Gallina, and this is my beautiful wife, Cosima.
Hello.
And today we're going to be talking about the news. We'll introduce ourselves a little bit if you don't know about call to activism and how we work, and just talk about some of the things going on today. It was a pretty interesting day.
Very long day.
Very,
Feel like a lot happened, a lot of emotions, a lot
absolutely,
of moving parts.
absolutely. So first I'll say, Cosima does she's the head of Facebook operations these days, and you're doing a kick-ass job. So I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate you. Facebook is on fire with the memes, and you're doing an awesome job. And I handle Twitter and all the rest.
Well,
And
you're doing an amazing job
well,
too.
thank you. But more importantly, I feel like the world is going to hell in a handbasket really fast, and the country is a dumpster fire right now. But we're doing our best to keep reporting and bringing you all the information that we can. So let's talk about today what's going on. So we're hosting the world leaders in the White House, or I should say, Donald Trump is, to hopefully negotiate some sort of end to the Ukraine. Really, it's the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the Russian aggression in Ukraine.
Right.
And they're meeting with Zelensky now after Donald Trump had his infamously wasteful meeting with Putin, where he made no deal. And I'm not sure what the hell they accomplished, but here we are. And I don't know about you, but today I felt two emotions. One, I was sick to my stomach seeing the world leaders kind of groveling at Trump because they know how he operates and they know what he's looking for, and he wants his name mentioned and he wants that slobbering. Otherwise, he turns off and he won't capitulate. And I think it's a little sad because I think that they're doing it because they really want to help Ukraine and they're willing to just sit there and say that nice shit about Donald Trump, even though nobody believes it. What do you think about that?
I felt like watching it live, I just wanted to sink back into my chair and hide. Like I felt like Marco Rubio did in the first meeting, where he just sunk into that sofa and just was looking down, saying, "Please, I don't want to be here right now," because we all know exactly how he felt. And that's how I felt today at home watching it. I just felt completely embarrassed. I felt ashamed. And I wish it didn't have to happen that way. It was really, really sad.
Absolutely. I do think there were some moments that the world leaders maybe showed their true, I don't know,
With eye rolls.
feelings. Yeah,
I saw a couple eye rolls today, which made me smile.
we covered that. The Prime Minister of Italy, Meloni, just like she was laughing next to him, and then at some point you could just clearly see their eyes roll, and she's looking for a reaction from some of the other leaders. God knows what they say about Donald Trump behind closed doors.
Yeah.
And then you have there was at one point Donald Trump said that Vladimir Putin wants peace, and Macron looked at him like he was from another planet, which basically that's what it feels like. But I want to get this out of the way. I want to say that I am really scared for Ukraine right now because I'm very afraid that Donald Trump is going to force Zelensky to approve some sort of deal that's going to carve up his country and give Putin exactly what he wants. And I think deep down, we kind of all know that that's what's coming and maybe could come unless Europe kind of holds Trump's feet to the fire and doesn't let that happen.
Well, hopefully that's what's happening, because today we saw everybody just kind of praising Donald Trump, thanking Donald Trump, giving him accolades one after another. And to be honest, it reminded me of this professor I had in college, right?
Yes.
Like the only reading he ever gave us was his own literature. The only examples he provided in class were his own examples from work, and we all just had to sit there and give him accolades because we knew that's what he wanted to hear for us to get the good grade to go to grad school, right?
Yes.
So I feel like that's kind of what everybody was doing today in the Oval Office, right? They knew what Donald Trump wanted to hear, they knew what the outcome could potentially be, so they're just giving him the accolades that he wants to hear. They're giving him the compliments, they're patting him on the back, and you saw how happy he was getting them. He was smiling, telling everybody they did a good job. And And poor Zelensky was sitting there, like kind of looking up sometimes, thinking like, is this reality? Is this real life?
Yeah, I mean the whole future of his country is in the balance, and you have to stroke Trump's ego to make sure his country isn't destroyed and given to Putin. I was just looking there. So already Russia has sort of presented what they think should happen, right? And that includes Ukraine giving up a sizable portion of its country. So there's at least one, two, three, four, five regions in Ukraine that Putin wants. That's Luhansk, that's Donetsk, that's Zaporizhia, that's Kherson, that's Crimea. And these areas are right on the border of Russia, and they make up almost 20% of the entire country of Ukraine. And I think, we've heard anecdotally they've interviewed people in Ukraine, and they've sort of asked the people on the street how they feel about these peace talks. And most of them are, I mean, this is a very tough people. They've endured a lot over the last year and more. They've lost almost 100,000 people since the start of the invasion. I think that's about 70,000 troops. They lost, I think, almost 30,000 if you look at the numbers of innocent civilians. Um, so this is a people that suffered, and it would just be such a great tragedy to basically make all that for naught and just give Putin exactly what he wants on a platter. And I think that's like the biggest risk. So what could we do about it? Well,
Yeah.
I think we need to call it out. That's what we're doing right now. I think that we all should probably take the position that Ukraine shouldn't give up all of this land, 20% of its country. I think that Putin has to give up some of his demands. And I think Donald Trump has to make that happen. And if not, we need to call him out for just folding. I think, Crimea, Russia's had for a while. They invaded, I think, Crimea under Obama administration, if I'm not mistaken, or slowly kind of took it over. But the other regions, I think there really has to be these hard questions. Now, I will say, I saw on the right, if you look at their posts, they're all like, oh, he should redraw the maps. They're ready to stop the war. They want Zelensky to basically give it all up and end it. And I just, that's not diplomacy. That's just giving Putin what he wants.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
like, at some point, we're really going to have to ask, like, what is reasonable for Ukraine to give up,
The worst part of this all, this conversation could have happened months ago.
Absolutely.
Like, how sad. Like, thousands of people have died in the past several months.
You're talking about when he came the first time?
Yeah, when he came the first time. When Zelensky was here the first time, and he was made fun of for his clothing. He was put in a really awkward, shitty situation, to be quite frank with you. And in the meantime, how many thousands of soldiers died in Ukraine?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it didn't have to be that way.
No.
There could have been a solution much earlier. And you had Trump bullshitting because he wants to feel like this powerful dictator who came off as really, really powerful. And he ended up killing a bunch of people because he was too much of a coward to actually come forward.
You know what's really funny about that particular time period, right? So Trump is he knows what his base wants, even though he's not giving them the Epstein files because he's all over the Epstein files. He knows what his base wants, right?
Yep.
So I think that particular episode, when you have Zelensky sitting there, he's berated. I mean, the whole thing was disgusting. Like, that was probably one of the most embarrassing moments that I've seen. And there's been millions of embarrassing moments from Donald Trump since his first term. But that was really a new low. The guy is here in America desperately trying to save his country, desperately trying to save his people. And Donald Trump is yelling at him and asking him to say thank you. I mean, it's just too fucking disgusting for words. They're making fun of his suit, and Fox News is there, and it was just a real disgusting show. But since then, Harry Enton, the guy on CNN who kind of goes over the numbers, he's charismatic and fun, and he talks about the polls. There has been a real flippening going on with Republicans in terms of their support of America helping Ukraine. So, like, I think, if I'm not mistaken, around the Biden times, right, they were about 30%.
Yeah.
And whether America should help Ukraine. And now, according to Harry Enton, which means that there was a huge change, they're closer to the 60% number.
Yep.
So that's a good thing, because I think if that's true, if MAGA has kind of softened on the idea of America giving Ukraine some help, I think it could push Donald Trump in a direction where the negotiations a little more fair than him back then when he was assuming his everyone in the Republican Party wanted this war ended and they wanted to see him abuse Zelensky publicly. Maybe it's a good thing that there's been a delay and that more people sort of want a fair negotiation. But that time was really shitty, and I totally agree with you. Like, he could have tried harder back then, which would
Right.
really changed the direction of things.
And what you're saying is like you're just hoping enough people give the accolades to him now to keep going. Because the accolades he's getting now wasn't something he necessarily got a few months ago during the first meeting.
Mm.
And you saw the outcome. He doesn't like not feeling important. He doesn't not like getting the compliments, right?
Mm.
So you just have to hope that's going to keep going until it gets to the point where he actually will move forward and there will be some resolution.
I mean, I think that's why you're hearing even some Democrats. I think there was a Harold Ford, if I'm not mistaken. There was a couple of people today, Democrats, that were trying to say, you know what, if Donald Trump does come up with some solution and ends the war that doesn't give Ukraine, I mean, that doesn't force Ukraine to give up 16 to 20% of their whole country, then sure, we all should give him accolades. I don't necessarily feel that strongly that we should, but at the same time, I think that we really, 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 really want a situation where Ukraine though this war is ended, but that it's not just given to whatever Putin wants. I think that's the biggest risk.
What did you think about the letter that Zelensky brought for Melania today?
I'm no Melania fan, that's for sure, with that ChatGPT written letter, but at the same time, I think that President Zelensky showed a lot of class, and I think it's more about his class than hers. But I thought it was a great moment in particular because he kind of gave a dig to Trump as he handed it to him. He made it clear, he's like, "This is not for you, it's for Melania," which I thought was funny, Mister. I want the Nobel Peace Prize. But yeah, that letter, got some flack, and her signature is absolutely ridiculous. But I mean, the point was she sent the letter to Putin asking him to end the war. She's horrible in 99 other ways, so it is what it is. But
Yeah.
I thought the letter at least made sense. Yeah, so that's, I mean, we're just gonna have to see. I'm scared. I don't know exactly where it's gonna go. Scared in the sense I care about all countries that are fighting for their freedom. I mean, it's something we enjoy in America, so I take that personal when a country is standing up for freedom and they fought so hard and they want to be a part of the
Yeah.
West, and someone who loves this country, and I feel for that. They want that. They want freedom, and so to have Putin next door, and it all of course it has to be Putin, the one guy that Donald Trump constantly holds his water. It's a tough situation, but
Well, what do you think happened in the last couple months that really has Donald Trump singing a different tune?
I think it's all about Republican feelings toward the war effort. I think that he's a political animal, and he follows the polls, and he looks to see how things are moving, and he sticks his tongue out, and he does the little wins and where the political winds bring him. And believe me if I tell you, if MAGA tomorrow loved Zelensky and wanted the war to go a certain way, Donald Trump's going to take that position. But I think so. I think there's a little bit of that. I also think that he wants the war to end because he desperately wants this accolade in his history, and like he wants people to remember him for ending the war.
Yeah.
And I think he wants that so bad it trumps his love for Putin and wanting to hold his water. So that's another interesting dynamic.
Well, going based on that, I mean, what do you think that says about the Epstein files?
Well, so we can actually go to the Epstein files. That was the next thing I was hoping to talk about. The segue here is that there were two kind of pretty decent bombshells that came out since the first meeting with Putin and Trump a couple days ago.
Yeah.
And that was a reporter named, I have to find out her last name. I think it's Vicky Ward. I'll double check. But basically, a journalist discussed that at one point, Epstein actually said that Putin was one of his clients. Now, it's a really loaded term when you deal with Jeffrey Epstein. We don't know what that means because a client could be a John, right, doing heinous shit, or it could also be that he utilized his financial services because Epstein was sort of this shady financial guy that sort of helped rich people hide their money, and Putin is like the king of hiding his money. So it almost makes sense that that would be part of it. It could also be both, but we don't know. But it was definitely notable that he said that Epstein was one of his clients. There was another part of the bombshell that this was Michael Wolff reporting that Jeffrey Epstein may have met, or at least told Michael Wolff he did, met with Putin during Trump's first term as president. So the question there is, what was Putin meeting with Epstein about? Did Epstein give him any goods about Donald Trump? And that's, there's something, we've been following Trump for a long time, right? Really, since the minute he went down the escalator.
Yeah.
There's something with the Epstein files that just sits differently. He's so scared of this thing. And
Yeah.
it can't just be a passing message, a passing mention. Can't just be his name is in there that he had a phone call with Epstein. I don't know if what is in the file elevates to the point of criminal liability, because I think we would have seen a prosecution.
Yeah.
There is stuff in there that I think will change everyone's mind that likes Donald Trump.
Well, Pam Bondi knows what's in there, right? Elon claims to know what's in there. So you have a lot of people who are seemingly trying to protect him.
Absolutely.
They may be holding things over his head, like Elon did in his little tweet, right?
Yes.
But there's definitely something to be said about it.
There's something, like you could almost say like follow the money, like it's interesting because Epstein sort of intersects, like there's the whole disgusting pedophile stuff. There's the whole disgusting trafficking women stuff. And then there's also the fact that he was this international money kind of, what's a good word for that? Like he hid people's money. Now, going along, we're talking bombshells. Michael Wolff, who has leaked these little tidbits along the way about Epstein. Now, interestingly, Trump has never sued him.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's interesting because usually Trump sues to shut people up, and he has never sued him.
Yeah.
And something he said the other day was that Jeffrey Epstein may have been, according to him, Epstein said it was, but may have been the person, the architect of that famous $1 billion debt that Donald Trump claimed on his taxes. Sort of like that is Donald Trump's Achilles heel. Also, people kind of knowing the underbelly of his finances and the truth.
Right.
We know that in the 90s, at some point, because of the casinos folding, he had a massive debt, right? We're talking $1 billion. And what New York Times discovered through when his taxes were partially leaked was that he had a $1 billion deduction in the 90s.
Right.
And so he's still drawing on that or debt, right? He's drawing on the $1 billion loss, I should say, not a deduction.
Yeah.
And that he hasn't paid taxes like since then because he's drawing on this $1 billion loss. Well, full circle, Michael Wolff claims that Epstein may have been the architect of that plan. In his words, he said something to the effect of like, hiding the $1 billion. So there's that sort of rings some bells, because if Epstein was significantly involved in Donald Trump's finances around that period and hiding money, and we know that there was some sort of connections between Trump and Russia, maybe, where Russians were buying his buildings. There's like things that come across. I believe a Russian oligarch bought his house, Trump's house in Florida, for like 6 times its value. That was a really smelly deal when you start peeling up the pieces. So is there a connection between Donald Trump's money and Russia and Epstein?
Maybe.
Release the files, right?
Let's
see
the
file.
Like his followers, this is the one thing that they're also stuck on. And this is the first time you see their expressions when the Epstein files are brought up, where they want answers too.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they still want to see the files. I'm afraid that it's sort of died a little bit. I think that's we have to keep ringing that bell the best we can. There's a lot of distractions. Trump is a master at distractions. Every day, there's more and more stuff that comes out.
Well, tomorrow might actually be a pretty big day.
That brings us to tomorrow. So, yeah, for those of you who saw us last week, we went over some of the big Epstein sort of blockbuster dates to remember. And tomorrow was one of the ones we mentioned as a deadline that the DOJ had based on the subpoena of the House Oversight Committee. And the story with that was that Robert Garcia, the Democrat who's the ranking member of the Oversight Committee, wrote a letter and approached Comer and said, who is the current head of the Oversight Committee, and said, look, you have the ability to request the files as Oversight Chair. Do it.
Yep.
And he did it so publicly and so astutely and so smartly that Comer was backed into the corner, and he chose to favor his seat over being loyal to Donald Trump, which I think was interesting in this case. And he actually sent a subpoena to the DOJ requesting the files. The DOJ responded today. This is like breaking news just about 40 minutes ago by Fox News that they have replied to James Comer, and they said that they will capitulate by handing over some files.
Oh.
So of course it's the DOJ. We don't trust them as far as we can, anything they say we don't trust. Pam Bondi already indicated that there are things she doesn't want out. I think they're gonna lie and say something like we have to protect the identities of blah 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 blah, and I think they're
Just
gonna,
use a Sharpie marker.
yeah, that's it. I think they're
It's
gonna
not that hard.
Sharpie it all up. But I think that's something we could all stay on top of. Let's see what they do release. Let's see what they don't. Let's make sure nothing goes in darkness. Let's make sure we stay on top of that and make sure that they're not just trying to get away with it, because that's like another thing that they could do by handing over some BS portion of the files and be like, okay, here's what we're handing
Yeah.
over. But meanwhile, they're hiding all the juicy stuff.
Well, we'll be on it tomorrow.
And we know, well, they said specifically that they're going to start on Friday, which is
That's late.
which is late. It's funny that they're supposed to legally respond by tomorrow and start handing over, but they indicated that's going to take time. Yeah,
They had time
to shred.
though. They had plenty
Yeah,
of time to do this.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot of time to call the DC truck, that shreds all the documents and burn them.
They need to find a
Mar-a-Lago's
toilet
bathroom.
to
Yeah,
flush them down.
exactly. They
Yeah.
might bring him to Florida in his bathroom. But that's something I'm really interested in, because we know Donald Trump's name is in the files. They've already indicated that.
Elon said they were there.
Yeah.
Not that Elon has credibility, but
No,
he has more credibility than a lot of people that are
Absolutely.
currently in there.
Absolutely. And we already know there have been many reports that the FBI, or was it the FBI had requested, or was it DOJ had requested how many times Trump's name was in the file?
Yeah.
So we know his name is in the damn file, including that New York Times, the Washington Journal piece about the birthday note.
Oh.
So
yeah.
We'll know if things are missing. At least we know enough to be able to tell that they're missing. So that's going to be interesting. So let's keep an eye on that. We'll keep you posted. And please do look out for that. And
we'll be around tomorrow covering it. So just keep an eye out.
Okay, what else is on our docket today? Well, I did want to talk about Texas a little bit.
Okay.
And we're not going to keep you too long, but there is an important update with Texas that I thought was really cool, and I wanted to highlight for you in case you missed it. So Beto O'Rourke has an organization, right? People Power. He's been raising money. He's been doing an awesome job. And that's why Greg Abbott and Attorney General Ken Paxton has done everything they could to suppress Beto. And they filed a suit against him. And they basically had a puppet Abbott judge rule that Beto O'Rourke could not give any of the money that he had raised to the Texas representatives who left the state. And I'm not going to use the word fled like the New York Times and all the other media. They didn't flee. They're the ones that stood up for America and democracy by not putting up with that clown show bullshit authoritarian takeover. But the court ruled that Beto couldn't give them money because if these people were facing fines, they needed room and board, they needed assistance in that. It wasn't to make them rich; it was to literally keep them at level zero so that they weren't in personal debt. The judge said no because it's an illegal contribution, and they wouldn't let him give. So Beto has all this money that he raised. What is he going to do with it? He outsmarts Greg Abbott, and what he does is he gives it all to the House Democratic Caucus, to the Black American caucus and also the Latin American caucus. And what that promises is that that money will go to not only fighting the gerrymandering in Texas in court, but that money through the caucuses can go to pushing candidates on the ballot box. And basically, it was just like a huge loophole.
Yeah.
I can imagine Greg Abbott and Ken Paxton screaming, but because the caucus has the ability to do whatever they want with the money, it was a really astute way of getting out of that restriction. So Beto announced it in a great speech, and he's been really loud about Democrats sort of like stepping it up and fighting fire with fire, which I think is the message most Democrats really want to hear right now.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
sometimes you have to match Republican ruthlessness so that they don't do this shit again. You know, we've learned a lot of lessons. If you think about how they stole a Supreme Court seat
Mm-hmm.
and we kind of let them. And I say we, I mean Democrats kind of let them. And they took that one on the chin. And I think we're over that bullshit. And I think we have to be ruthless and stand up. And I think that's what the leaders are doing now. And I'm glad to see what's happening in California. I'm glad that they're at least fighting back. And that's what we want to see. We want to see action. We want to see some sort of offense, you know, rather than just constant defense. So
Yeah.
I think that was great. So I think this goes in that category, which is really awesome. I don't know what's to be. There's rumors that the Texas Democrats are going to return. I wish what is to be isn't inevitable, you know, but it's hard. You know, there are laws and there are threats, and so we're going to just have to see what happens to these brave representatives, and eventually what happens if Greg Abbott is going to call a second session.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping he's taking the California threats real. I mean, and I want to talk about that. People might not know the details of this provision that's going to go to vote in California before the midterms is genius, because basically what Gavin Newsom has done is he's created this plan that only triggers if Texas steals seats.
Right. Right.
So if they don't, there's detente and it won't move forward. And which is that makes sense, right? And we don't necessarily want gerrymandering all around. If no one does it, that's democracy, right?
Right.
So this plan only comes into effect if Greg Abbott steals the seats. That's
You know he will. He's going to try to.
he's still trying to, and now he's got an answer back. And then number two, the it resets at the next census,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is really, really classy move. And it's good for the country, because I think at the end of the day, gerrymandering is really wrong.
Right.
It goes against what the founders wanted. The founders created the Senate. It's a bicameral legislation. You have the Senate and you have the Congress, right? And the House is supposed to be your local representation. It's supposed to look like the people that it serves. It's supposed to be a group of neighborhoods. It's supposed to be that. And when you twist it and you make a district the size of a spaghetti noodle and it wraps around the block 7 times and has parts of 100 neighborhoods, it flies against what they wanted. The Senate was supposed to be the at-large body that they represent the entire state. And then you're supposed to have your local interests in the federal government, and that's Congress. And when what they're doing is they're literally violating, in my opinion, the complete spirit of the beauty of what the House is, which is, you know, it's a smaller district, a group of neighborhoods. It's supposed to help people and understand what's going on in these places, and it completely undermines that representation.
But I think we've seen like they don't give two shits.
They don't give two shits about the Constitution unless it serves them. Right.
I mean, and that goes for everybody in the GOP right now. They don't care. Their mouths are shut, and we know what they're thinking. We know that they see what's happening and they know it's wrong, but they're keeping their mouths shut because we have a corrupt radical president in the White House right now who needs to be catered to and needs the accolades and needs the reassurance from everybody in that party. And it's just really, really sad and pathetic.
Yeah, and test balloons. That's what we see Trump do, you know, all the time. He tests balloons. You know, he'll start by having US troops in California and, you know, stick his foot in the water. And then we start seeing it spread to Washington. That's what despots do. That's what strongmen do. That's what authoritarians do. the slide to fascism usually starts with these test balloons. Like today, Trump is sitting there next to Zelensky and he makes the joke, "Oh, you suspended elections during the war. So it means in 3.5 years, if we have a war, then we can suspend the election here." It's that kind of shit. That wasn't a joke. That was a statement that he puts out in the ether. And today's jokes become tomorrow's history, and that's what happens. So I think we all cannot let our guard down 5 seconds with this administration and all these Republican sycophants who show that they're willing to ride or die all the way to the end of American democracy as we know it.
Yeah.
To support one man and one party and all for power. And it just, our founders are rolling around in their graves. They had their own problems, and some were slave owners, and obviously they had issues. But at the same time, America, is this beautiful experiment, but it is very, very fragile.
Yes.
And it takes all of us to defend it. And if we don't, we're going to lose it. And Cosima and I have a daughter, and a lot of what we do is for her. And I care about the future of this country, and I want my daughter, and I want our daughters, and our grandkids, and children, and all the children in the world, and to inherit a better world than the way we had it. And so far, it's not going in that direction. America's less free. It's probably never been this unfree since the Civil War.
Yeah.
And the environment and the climate and just things going to hell in a handbasket. So we have to turn the ship around real fast.
Yeah.
It start by winning the damn midterms. Let's make sure that we come out to vote so much that Donald Trump can't steal it. I mean, it's a concern that I have, but I've seen it in action. We won the midterms in his first term.
Yeah.
Because we just came out in such great numbers that they couldn't fake it.
Right.
So I think that
everybody's gonna. I hope that they're angry enough to see that this is not the democracy we deserve to be living in, and this is not what the United States represents, and it's not who we are.
absolutely.
So I'm really hoping everybody goes out during the midterms and just casts the vote, whether you're a Republican, a moderate, or an independent, we deserve better than what's in the White House right now. It's a complete shit show, and this is not what our country is about.
I'll leave that as the last word. That was brilliant. But thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back next Monday. Let us know in the comments if you have any questions or want to see some stuff and have any suggestions about this format. It's kind of new, but it's just cool to sort of get to know you guys and talk about some of these interesting things going on. But thank you so much. We really appreciate you, and see you next week.